Warrior Within is perhaps the most controversial sequel in the history of video games. The reason for this is the absolute visual and even plot related dissimilarity between the game and the so called original. Because of this, unfortunately, to some extent, it was a failure. After all, compared to the Sands of Time, was frankly speaking rather lackluster in terms of sales and the buzz surrounding this franchise. In the previous video, I discussed why I am glad a remake isn't needed for the Sands of Time. Roughly speaking, everything there is already fine as it is because game is pretty simple and like nothing you can really change about it. And also, I'm afraid that a modern approach to female characters would severely distort the original meaning of the story, which still plays beautifully on a modern PC even despite its age. Also, I thought long and hard about this video because I ultimately came to the conclusion that the situation for the sequel is not at all the same as it was for the first part of the trilogy. By the way, I've always had more sympathy for the Warrior Within because of his thirst for freedom in parkour, combat, facing opponents, and self expression, of course. It is precisely these points that I'd like to use to analyze why the sequel not only surpassed the previous part of the game series in every way, but also why in today's world it looks more like a fan-made project than a full-fledged title from a game studio, and why the potential drawbacks of the remake might not affect this game as much as it would be with the first part. For most, Warrior Within revamped the combat system mechanics fully. It offers incredible freedom in battle. I still get kick out of how well thought out it is. I wouldn't say are many combos, but the ability to find additional weapons with different stats and use them however you like is executed at perfect 10 out of 10. Like even nowadays it feels fresh. Like I really don't even feel the need to add something additional to this combo. Like yes, it's not very much, but that's so perfect that you can play like as you like. You cannot use combos at all, or you can try to execute your enemies with a really good style. By the way, the soundtrack and the game's overall atmosphere are incredibly well suited also for this. Because all the time you have the chaos happening on the screen and it all happening at an incredible pace. But many people didn't like that. Despite the improvements to the combat system on a technical level, it became more explicit and gory. And here, by the way, I agree with the dissatisfied camp. It's not even that I'm some kind of pacifist or categorically opposed to blood in the games, when I wouldn't like this game at all. But it just seemed like a strange and illogical decision to me to add that to the story, where eventually the enemies have always been sand monsters without blood. I think the best solution would have been to leave them as they were and not add any extra red splatter. That would have kept the combat system incredibly spectacular, but it would have avoided the backlash that ultimately had to be faced, and some of fans really was lost there. But my favorite topic is, of course, the sexualization of characters. And I also agree here too that they've gone too far, but I still really love that era when even developers from major studios like Ubisoft could get away with creating things like that. Absolute freedom untouched by censorship or moral constraints of society. After all, it was just a virtual world, not the real one. Maybe that's a reason exactly why old games seems to be so alive, because when developers added something to their project, they truly believed in it and they wanted it. I of course understand the influence of marketing and that they created these characters mostly for the goal to raise up the sales, indeed. But I believe that they wanted it as much as they wanted to create a masterpiece. And that's the reason why I'm glad that the Warrior Within exists in the way it is. Yes, it's over the top, yes, it seems like teenage maximalism, but it's precisely because of stories like these that we value moderation in art. And all in all, I think this is exactly the part they would cut from Remake. After all, feminists certainly love strong and independent women like Shadi and Kailina, who can stand up for themselves and possess authoritative traits, but something tells me that's only true if those women aren't more beautiful than the creators of the game. So, in order to boost sales, they'd have to say goodbye to revealing outfits and juicy curves, unfortunately. But anyway, it's not a big loss for me, though it is a loss nonetheless. It's simply the main reason why the situation with the Warrior Within is so different from the previous part of the game, of the trilogy. Because it's that ambition that gave rise to a complex and intriguing story. However, the sense of time was crafted in every aspect to perfection because the game was linear and there was absolutely nothing for freedom or different ways how you can finish this. So basically, yeah, Sense of Time is perfection, but Warrior Within is absolutely different case because it's very ambitious game, and the studio really tried to jump over their head, and in some way they did it, but you can see that they had lack of time, and the game wasn't ready when it was released because we have a lot of bugs even inside of cutscenes with animations. We have a lot of plot holes. We cannot explain everything we can observe in the game, and I can talk about it in hours. So subscribe on my channel to not miss it. But we like this game mostly because they tried. Like game wasn't perfect, but nobody really want it to be perfect. Like we want a product we can enjoy, and the Warrior Within is a product we can enjoy even despite all the mistakes, glitches they did. And the reason for it is that they had a soul. They really tried to pull this game in a new level, and it's interesting even nowadays because you can rarely see project like this, everything for money, remake on remake and stuff like this. But this game could have been the way more perfect and the way more interesting because let's be honest, we had a lot of backtracking, we had a lot of problems with the map and game design, and a lot of problems with the plot apparently. But we still like this game. So remake would refresh this game, and it's gonna be really complicated and hard to recreate this, especially in a proper way with plot. But I would really appreciate it for reasons that this game should be alive. It was too good to be forgotten, and to die. And I saw some of videos with cutscenes with Dahaka or with full gameplay. They gain still millions of views, and it's not because the game like bad games doesn't get millions of views after 20 years, So yeah, basically this game need a serious moderation, serious refreshing, but it's still a good game. But I won't recommend you to play on modern PC because it's such a painless. Let's be honest, game had and has really bad map and really bad game design in case that I'm experienced player and I played this game in my childhood, but sometimes I have troubles to orient on the map. And I remember like at several moments where I couldn't understand where I shall to go to move on in the plot, and that's painful because you have a lot of secrets, you have a lot of enemies. It's really easy to die, especially if you play on hard difficulty. It's like no problem to die. And I had a lot of moments where I stuck, when I lost plenty time for nothing, only because game is too dark. Sometimes you cannot see where you shall to go. Sometimes camera doesn't show you up things that it should be shown in the good game design. And obviously that's not the problem of developers, because in the first part you can clearly see where you shall to go, because they had time to create first part. They just hesitated at the end. And you can see it because later you have a lot of backtracking, as I said, and it's annoying. Backtracking is really boring here, and I won't recommend you to play this game if you never played this series before, if you're not a fan, because a game is really feels like it's broken, especially the close to the final. So yeah, game is kind of broken, but we still like it because of the freedom. It was 2004. Nobody created games like this, and a lot of people compare it to the God of War. But as I remember, God of War, the first part was released only in 2005. So technically, they had a really good advantage, because 1 year back then it was a really big advantage, believe me, because yeah, games and technologies was evolving so fast that like after a few years you could see the absolutely different games with more freedom, with more opportunities and better graphics. So yeah, they did what they could, and we can see that it was a peak. It was truly a peak in case of combat, and if in case of the story, because despite story is pretty complicated, broken, and has a lot of holes, it's a good integrated into gameplay. Like you can travel between two timelines, and it's crazy, bro. It's so fucking big. Even nowadays it's gonna be hard to create game like this. I really don't understand how they had balls to try to create this idea in real game, in real world, in 2004. And basically they did everything correct, but it wasn't enough for those times and technologies, I believe. So basically nowadays it's gonna be a beautiful game, the 10 times better than Sands of Time. As I said, I like Sands of Time more eventually because it was just the perfect game. But Warrior Within, I can replay this game even now. Like I know I said it's a pain in us, and it's real pain in us, so I won't recommend you to try it now if you really like your nervous system. But yeah, you can try it actually if you like the grotesque style, because grotesque style isn't the thing you can oftenly see in the games. And basically, more pluses. We had a lot of secrets in this game. Secrets is one of my favorite and major part. Like, I mean, you have upgrades and your ending depends on it. You have two endings, so that's also great. You have travels, and you have a lot of things you cannot understand in the game because you need only guessing about them. It's kind of even positive side, because like it creates a lot of mysticism and a lot of theories about the game. I also did it, and it was very successful on a few thousand of views. For me, it's really good, especially for a guy who barely knew English, especially back then. But the system of free run is overrated for my opinion. Not because it's bad, it actually was a very good idea to try to recreate this system, but in this game we have, as mentioned before, we have a lack of things that needed be here, because most of the time I'm looking around this castle, especially when you have these two towers. It's actually seems and feels pretty boring. Yes, you have some secrets to find, and it has some kind of diversity, but due time you're really tired of fightings and of the parkour, and you have nothing to do except this one. Like, I believe they should have tried to fill this map with some kind of side quests, maybe. Then it can be good. Like, I don't judge them because of lack of time and stuff like this. Actually, it's pretty good. And I feel like map is too dark, and you kind of feel too lonely in here. Like, you needed inner monologue in the Prince, like they did it in Sense of Time, and like they did it even in the Two Thrones. And like then you can play this game, because in Two Thrones you rarely have moments where you have nothing to do or nothing to listen. And I don't mind against the loneliness in the game, but I just feel like it's not suitable for Prince franchise, especially if we're gonna depend on original, and that they can easily fix it in the remake. I don't feel like remake would be soon, or I'm not sure that it would be, because of this situation with Ubisoft. I also talked about it back then, long time ago. But yeah, there is still hope. So I believe they shall to start with Warrior Within and leave the Sense of Time in peace, at least right now. But who knows what they actually gonna do? Because recreating of Sense of Time, it's not that hard task, because Sense of Time is pretty simple game basically. It's a good one, but it's simple. It has no ambitions and no soul. After all, like it's more a game of story, game of film, and this game for one evening, literally. But the Warrior Win is something else. It's something different. It's a game that hit you very hard. It hit me so hard back then in childhood. I still cannot fucking forget it. And it's not because of gore or something like this. It's because of the free run system. It's fucking awesome combat. It's the best combat I ever seen in 2004, 5, 6, maybe 7. And a lot of people will compare this game to others, but it's actually incomparable, because this game was released earlier than most game the people compare this game. So yeah, that's a fucking awesome game, and it deserves more. It deserves more than just be dust like it is now. Because let's be honest, despite the big attention time to time, the game is dying. Like the community doesn't have a lot of content about it, and most channels are actually dead. And I also cannot to continue to all the time talk about this game. I also have a lot of different topics to talk about, but yeah, I still cannot forget this, and that's the reason why I'm doing it sincerely. So basically, I have kind of different opinion about two games of one series. If I feel like Sense of Time would be only spoiled by remake, like Silent Hill 2, for example, if I gonna get some analogies. But Warrior Win is absolutely different case, because Warrior Win is absolutely different game. That's really weird, but I like them both in different ways. One is giving you freedom, and our one gives you story and moral compass. And I think it's not should be mentioned in one series, but yeah, that's our side of the story. Basically, I believe that the remake would refresh the dead game, because nobody is playing it right now, but everyone heard about it back then. And this game is deserve more attention, because it have a deep lore that developers actually could to extend. Unfortunately, we have really small knowledge about this story, because nobody gives you anything about creatures, about the island, about the Kailina, about the Dahaka even. Everything is covered up by mysticism, and it's a positive side, because you can do whatever you want with the story. Nobody gonna mind and be mad. Basically, you can also tell me your opinion about it in the comments. I started reading this all because I am a small YouTuber, and you can subscribe and support my videos as well. You have links in the description, you have likes button as well, and I am trying to make it out as a small YouTuber, so yeah, I would appreciate any help. And guys, good luck, bye bye.